Let's talk to Daoud Khairallah now, Professor of International Law at Georgetown University. Good to see you there, Mr. Khairallah. Now, Syria's foreign minister accuses the U.S., France and other states in arming, funding and staffing the rebels, which they deny. So who is supporting them?
I think it's obvious that there is a foreign power that is supporting the armed rebels inside. And if we are to believe the report of the BND, the most respectable European, it's a German intelligence service, one of the most respectable probably in the world, who says that 5%, only 5% of the armed oppositions are Syrians, and the others are mercenaries coming from the outside. This is a huge violation of international law, of the sovereignty of Syria, a distortion of the reason for which the uprising had taken place, destroying the national economy, destroying the most precious treasures of Syria, like the souk. It's one of the oldest covered souk in the world in Aleppo. This is not the work of a Syrian nationalist. This is something that is vicious, and it is fomented and funded and trained and controlled from outside. And this is totally illegal and totally against United Nations Charter, international law, and practice among nations.
Now, as you know, the West is determined in its backing of the Syrian rebels. But where does the close American ally Israel, where is it? Could it possibly, this possible new regime in Syria be a dangerous development for Israel?
I think there might be making a huge mistake again. I mean, they hold it against Mr. Assad opposing the Israeli domination and supporting the resistance. We have to remember that Syria has an occupied, large piece of Syrian land is occupied by Israel. And like any country who has occupied territories would do everything it can to free its territories. And there were negotiations between Syria and Israel. They were very close under Mr. Rabin's rule to come to an agreement, to a settlement. And if Syria would become a failed state, and I think it is the most likely scenario, and will have the fundamentalists ruling in parts of Syria, this will be a huge headache, not only to Israel, but to everyone, to the whole world. I don't know why this short-sighted behavior on the part of Israel, on the part of the U.S. also primarily.
Thank you very much. We'll leave it right there. Mr. Daoud Khairallah, Professor of International Law at Georgetown University. Thank you for your time.